The best of Money Matters. The Hot Seat.
Welcome to The Hot Seat, a debate segment where ideas clash and insights spark. I'm your host, Hongbin Jeong. Now, the pandemic forced companies to work from home. Post-pandemic, many employers are calling workers back to office, some even to the extent of saying work from office or resign. But work still continued while we were stuck at home. Things worked, so why call people back to the office full time? Does hybrid working lead to less productivity or vice versa? Can such work arrangements lead to more productivity? Is hybrid working the future of work, or is it simply a temporary solution that will fail to stand the test of time? Well, as we approach 2025, it is possible to strike the perfect balance between remote autonomy and in-person collaboration, or are we setting ourselves up for a fractured, less productive workforce? Before we hear from our guests and dive deeper into this debate, here's a disclaimer. The views and arguments presented by our interviewees do not necessarily reflect their personal beliefs or opinions. Instead, they are here to provide a fresh perspective on the topic at hand. On that note, if you'd like to send some questions in for our guests or to tell us your opinion, feel free to text us at 88550893 or leave a comment on LinkedIn and Facebook as we're currently streaming live on those platforms. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our guests who will be sharing their perspectives on this pressing topic. Standing on the side that hybrid working is still feasible is Issac Lim, who's a founder of Anthro Insights and Organisational Sociologist. And on the other hand, against the idea of a hybrid working, we have Adrian, who is an HR influencer. And welcome to the Hot Seat, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thanks for having us, Hongbin.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right. Okay. We have both of them here to discuss this topic, whether hybrid working is still productive in 2025. Now, we're seeing a growing number of bosses that are taking a tougher stance on employees being physically present in the office, but many workers are still, unconvinced about the need to do so. So perhaps, Adrian, we can start off with you. Give me one good reason you tell the employee why they need to be back in the office full time.
I have many reasons, but if I have to pick one, it would really be, as human beings, we just have this natural instinct to not be very disciplined about how we operate when people are not watching. And I have friends, I know people who work in a very different manner when they're at home. I think that's tough, not just for the company, obviously, but also from a career progression perspective. There was a study done by a company called C-Trip. You could find that online, but they realized people who actually have lesser face time in office did not progress as well on the career ladder. But ultimately, it's really trying to balance both things, right? You are ultimately being paid to do your job. And if you're not doing your job, you are at home watching Netflix. And there's a very strong lineup of Netflix shows. You're not going to be disciplined enough to, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this 4 hours, and then I'm going to do that. It's just going to be very tough for the organizations to put things together and make sure that things are being done at the end of the day.
I see. Well, post-pandemic, many companies, including Wall Street firms, have diverged on their work from home policies. We've seen recently JP Morgan is calling all employees back to office, while Spotify is still remaining the whole, you can work from home. Now, executives, they're remaining split on how flexible working arrangements should be. So, Issac, what would be the ideal hybrid working policy that everyone can agree on? Is there one?
An ideal policy that everyone can agree is a pretty tall order. Yeah, I do think that a good working policy for hybrid working is no different from a policy that working in the office, which means that you need to have very clear expectations, you need to have very good communication norms, you need to have very clear deliverables, and you need to have colleagues who play their part and pull their weight. So I always say that there's no difference in whether you're working from home or whether you're working in the office.
I see. Well, when we rapidly pivoted to remote work at the start of the pandemic, there was a lot of often justified concern about remote working leading to, burnout and other mental health issues. So, Issac, while remote working can provide flexibility, don't you think it may also increase feelings of isolation and burnout, especially if workers struggle to separate personal and professional life at home? Essentially, they never truly so-called leave their workspace, right?
The issue about problems with separating personal life and work is not a feature of working from home. It is more like an individual proclivity and organizational norms. We all bring work home. I mean, a lot of people bring work home, and people who bring work home also have the challenge of separating work from home and from their life as well. So I do think that when it comes to feelings of isolation and burnout, this is a feeling that people who work full-time in office go through as well.
I see. Well, a new study by International Workplace Group has revealed a clear correlation between the adoption of hybrid working policies and improved employee well-being. 4 in 5 say that their overall well-being had significantly improved due to the greater flexibility offered by hybrid working. And in fact, in a separate study in 2024 by human resource consultancy Mercer, 75% of respondents here in Singapore say they feel less stressed when working remotely compared with 69% globally. So, Adrian, with growing calls for mental health to be a top priority in the workplace, wouldn't a hybrid work arrangement help in promoting good mental health for all workers?
Well, I would argue that office environments actually provide the crucial social interactions that combat isolation and loneliness, which actually is one of the major causation of all these mental issues. And the clear separation between work and home life really promotes better work-life balance if you think about it. And importantly, you get that in-person support from colleagues and managers that's more effective for any mental health issues. And I truly believe a structured office routine can reduce anxiety and improve overall well-being. I mean, I personally have been through situations where I have to do a Zoom call. I'm somewhere outside that I'm not familiar with. Either the Wi-Fi is not working, my headphone is not working, or something just have to turn up. But in a structured office environment, you won't have to deal with those anxiety.
I see. Well, Adrian, you talked about productivity earlier in the discussion. So I'm going to bring in more studies here that may just raise concerns for hybrid working arrangements. Forbes reported in August 2023 a 10% to 20% decrease in productivity for fully remote workers, while a survey done by LinkedIn revealed that over 1/3 of professionals in Singapore are struggling to communicate efficiently in hybrid work environments. So, Isaac, doesn't this data alone indicate that working from home decreases productivity levels? How do you reconcile these findings with your belief that hybrid work arrangements can actually enhance productivity?
So actually, hybrid work arrangement, I would say, gives employees and employers the best bet in combating these feelings of isolation and burnout, actually. Because instead of trying to have blocks of time block out for only singular kinds of activity, it allows employees to have that kind of autonomy to splice and dice the time according to the dynamics of their life as well. The study that you spoke about, I'm aware of that. So it goes back to what we define by how we define what productivity is. If you think deeper about this notion of productivity, it's actually really, really hard to define and what it is. For example, if I'm a factory worker, I can say that, I have X number of products that I produce. But let's say I'm a teacher and I say that I have a productive day. What does it mean? Does it mean that I managed to teach a lot and squeeze a lot into the curriculum in the single period of time? The outcomes are more important here, right? Which is whether the students have learned. For many of the work that we do as knowledge workers, it's really difficult to define what is productive or not productive.
I see. Well, one often heard argument for maintaining flexible work arrangements is that a company that fails to do so risks losing good employees. In fact, work from office or resign. That's what some bosses are telling their employees to those who are non-compliant. So, Adrian, given the growing demand for flexible working arrangements from employees, particularly from those, with caregiving responsibilities or other personal commitments, how would you ensure that the back-to-office approach attracts and retains diverse talent, especially in a highly competitive job market here in Singapore?
There are a number of things that companies could do. One is to emphasize the unique benefits of in-office work, such as mentorship, networking, career growth. You also want to highlight company culture and team building activities that are enhanced by physical presence. Of course, the competitive compensation and benefits package to offset the lack of remote work options. And you may want to create an engaging and even state-of-the-art office environment that employees want to be part of. I remember when it was probably about 20 years ago when LinkedIn first had their office at AXA Tower, they often like to bring in young folks to their office and then do a tour. And everyone, when they reaches the pantry, they'll be like, wow, you can really see the awe in every single one of them. And everybody wants to work in LinkedIn because the pantry is nice. It's a silly reason, but that is one of the reasons why. And also, you may want to consider transition support. Like EYs have a fund for commuting and care costs, which increase office time by 150% year over year.
I see. So there are alternatives that you can bring people back to office, some fun little, whether it's just a pantry or, productive collaborations here and there. Well, Isaac, on the other hand, staying away from the office a couple of days a week may mean less face-to-face interactions. How can hybrid working ensure a strong company culture when employees are often disconnected from their colleagues and may have fewer opportunities to bond in person?
Actually, when we are in office, it really depends on the people that were there, right? When we're in the office, we don't really talk to our colleagues like the entire 8 hours they were there. So, in fact, we kind of gripe about the long meetings that we have to be together. And those meetings are often very unproductive and we complain about them nonstop. That structure is our friend here, meaning to say we should specify certain days and hours where employees are supposed to congregate and do the kinds of work that collaborative work requires. And then, as many knowledge workers would require, will be time alone to think and do deep work. And I think that separation of flexibility of location and timing will actually be the most productive for everybody.
Yeah, I see. Well, last year, the Ministry of Manpower laid out guidelines for all employers to have a process for workers to request flexible work arrangements from December 2024. And experts noted that the MOM guidelines, though not legally binding, kind of signals that the government recognizes the importance of flexi work arrangements. So, Adrian, if Singapore excels in flexible work arrangements, couldn't it serve as a competitive advantage for the nation?
Well, it could, but I think the differentiation here isn't really so much about flexible work. You can differentiate yourself in many different ways, such as fostering a culture of innovation through in-person collaboration. And a strong office presence can also truly enhance Singapore's reputation at a global business hub. I mean, just go and do a Google image search on business district. You only see CBD. You don't see someone's living room. And a full return to office policy really aligns with Singapore's efficient use of limited land and infrastructure. I know most employees will not care, but employers really have it tough when they try to run hybrid because you cannot rent an office just 3 days a week. You have to pay for all 7 days, like it or not, whether people turn up. And of course, while there are no specific RTO return to office success stories for Singapore, I think, again, the true emphasis here is the potential for increased productivity and innovation through in-person work.
I see. And before we end off this debate here, whether flexible work arrangements or hybrid working is still productive in 2024, I want to listen to some of the last arguments here. Isaac, probably we'll start with you. Any last arguments on whether hybrid working is still productive in 2025?
I would say that hybrid working is not only here for 2025, it's here to stay. And I bet that organizations who do not have a very robust hybrid working policy will suffer in terms of productivity and access to talent.
I see. And Adrian, any last arguments?
I think to each their own. There will always be people who prefer hybrid and people who prefer going back to office. You just have to be very diligent about which one to look at. And for companies that's doing RTO, do it nicely. Don't half-ass the entire thing. You got to make sure that your policy, your infrastructure, everything caters well for people who come back to the office. Otherwise, they're just coming back to the office for the sake of coming back to the office, right? So you want to make sure that everything is maximized, and that will lead to better productivity and innovation because of in-person interaction.
I see. Well, thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We've been speaking to Issac Lim, who's the founder of Anthro Insights, an organizational sociologist, and Adrian Tan, who is an HR influencer. This has been The Hot Seat, where it's not just about winning an argument, but about understanding the complex layers that underpin today's hottest topics. I've been your host, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.